Hi, it's Christina Myers, host of The Stina Life. In this episode, we're going to talk about the 12/21 Winter Solstice and the move into the Capricorn Mansion, and how sitting in the void allows us to create something new from nothing. I'll also give you a quick update on the immense amount of energies that are pouring into the planet at this time and what you can do to try and integrate. Let's get into it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast this week. How is everyone holding up these days? How are you feeling? Oh, gosh, we've had this very intense weekend as it relates to the energies. And let me give you a quick update on this first, and then I'll move into the topic of the week for this podcast, which is all about the winter solstice. So I did a really quick podcast last week just to give a brief update on the energies, especially as it relates to the solar flares and the solar winds and those type of energies that have been coming in really nonstop. We have been experiencing an unprecedented amount of solar winds and flares that have been hitting the earth, especially on the 15th, the 16th, and the 17th, as these energies were increasing. So much so that I actually ended up in bed most of the day on the 16th, just trying my best to integrate these into my physical body. And I'm still trying to get over this flare up, this cold and sinus stuff that I have been fighting off now for well over a week. It seems like those are also very much part of this purging process that we're going through as we are receiving even more energies on the planet. So whenever we get these types of energies, our energy field is trying to expand, but our physical bodies are there. It's finding it very difficult to hold these energies. This weekend, my body was extremely inflamed, just trying to integrate them. I had lots of aches and lots of pains, joint pain especially. Headaches were very common. Third eye has been very active. I can feel it just actively moving, and that's usually a big sign for me that something is changing. While others I have spoken to have had enormous amounts of stomach issues, vision changes have been very common. And one moment things are extremely blurry, the next moment they are crystal clear. And then there's just this general feeling of feeling off, feeling floaty, feeling ungrounded, feeling untethered. And nothing seems to be helping as far as feeling grounded into our body, into this time and space, into ourselves again. So it's just a lot. A lot is coming in, and things do not seem to be slowing down as I am looking at the solar weather or listening to people who have a lot more, of course, experience and information around this stuff. I was listening to Pam Gregory the other day, who's a wonderful astrologer, and she had done a YouTube video very specifically related to this unusual solar class activity, these solar flares activities that have been happening. And she did a great job of explaining all of this. It helped me understand it a lot better as well. And what she was explaining is that we have three types of flare classes. We have a C class, we have M class, and we have X class flares. And the M class is 10 times stronger than a C class. So C class is kind of the first level. Then the M class is the second level, and it's 10 times stronger than the C class. And then we have X class flares, which are 10 times stronger than an M class flare. So they just, keep building, gradually building more and more in intensity. And she was saying in 2018 and 2019, we had no X class flares or M class flares at all. So no M class or X class flares in 2018 or 2019. We had a few C class flares, she said. But this year in 2023, according to Pam and the information she had, we have had 12 X class flares and 38 M class flares. And she says some of these flares are coming in twice a day at times. So that is a lot of energy that is impacting the geomagnetic field, impacting your physical body, impacting your light bodies. And that is a lot to process. And she also was mentioning that December 14th, just a few days ago, we had the largest X-class flare recorded since 2017. So, these unusual activities are dramatically impacting our physical systems. They're also helping us with ascension, and they're helping us shift our consciousness for sure, as well as we are getting a lot of other supportive energies from our teams, from those in other dimensions. We have a lot of assistance right now from galactical beings that are on this planet, helping as well raise our consciousness, help to recalibrate our systems. So lots going on. And, just things are speeding up at a rapid pace. And so part of this energy, and she was talking about this as well, was that it's forcing a lot of people to wake up at this time. And for those who have been on this journey for a bit longer, it is important for us to do what we can to assist others who are just starting to wake up, either by holding space for them, sharing tips, doing whatever you can to assist others at this time, because you have experience going through this. And they may not have had any experience going through any of these types of energetic shifts. And now, because they're so intense and they've had so much density in their systems that they haven't really been impacted by this as much as those who have been working on clearing things out and have been feeling this a lot more sensitive to the energies. Anything you can do to help assist others is great. The biggest tips that I always share as going through this process, as much as I have in the last few years, and the intensity of it, and I feel everything. I usually feel it before it actually hits most of the time. Resting as much as possible, sleeping if you can, take naps. I'm not a big nap taker, but if you can, rest as much as possible. The biggest thing is clean water. So if you have access to clean water, and putting intentions, or if you do any sort of energy work where you can help raise the frequency of the water, eating grounding foods, getting out of nature. The other thing that I really have been doing a lot of is salt baths. This helps to both ground you, and it helps to clear the auric field as well. So remember, you are going through growth spurts. This is growth spurts for your energy field. And you are outgrowing your current body. You're outgrowing your current energy field. You're expanding. And so things are shifting and changing. It's just like you have to buy a new pair of shoes because you've outgrown your shoes, or you have to buy clothes because you got really tall all of a sudden. So just like a teenager, we're going through a growth spurt, and it's important to take care of you. So hang in there and take care of yourselves, and just be aware that we have a lot more activity coming, and it is assisting us from the higher levels. It's assisting us. So hang in there. So this week, I really want to focus on the move into the Capricorn Mansion, which is coordinated with the Winter Solstice. So this is going to take place on December 21st. 1, 2, 2, 1, 2, 3. So we have all these fun numbers. The 1212 portal. Now we have 1221. And then at the end of the year, we've of course got 12, 31, 23. So all these fun numbers and numerological pieces that are hitting us this month. So the solstices are very important energetic points that we have each year. And it's excellent days for harnessing these energies to enhance what it is that we are wanting to bring forward, what we're wanting to call in, what we're wanting to evolve into. The summer solstice helps us to have this great expansion and growth because we are so focused on growing and nurturing the seeds that we planted in the spring. And we're harnessing the energy of the sun. And that represents our personal power. That represents our solar plexus chakra in our body. And so we do that and we harness that to shine our light into the world and enjoy the bounty of what we have planted those seeds for. What have we created? On the other hand, the winter solstice, which is what we're moving into now, it's all about going inward so that we have the time that we need in the void for that inner reflection and that rest period that we so need as we reach this point of the year. If we think about a bear moving into a hibernation for the winter, think about it works all year to collect and store food so that it can go deep into its cave in the winter months for sleeping and for rejuvenation. And it reemerges once the snow begins to melt and the days become longer and it starts to do the process all over again. So for those of us living in the Northern Hemisphere, we are moving into that bear season. We're moving into that season of hibernation. And we're moving into the darkest days on the planet when we hit the 21st, while the Southern Hemisphere is having, the longest day of light for them on the planet. So these days are very important because they show us the duality that exists in the world on our earth, but it also shows us the duality that exists within each of us, that we each carry the dark and we each carry the light within us. And I've been doing a lot of thinking recently about the dark and the void. And this has been such an important and prominent theme of my personal journey this year. And also the people that I came in contact with as well that came across my path this year. We have really been focusing on that shadow energy, that darker energy. In fact, it played such a significant role most of the summertime, actually, which is funny, as these timelines were collapsing. And I was seeing so many people who had an amplification of storylines that had an underlying storyline of very dark energies with it. And it was the dark, or you could say the shadows that we all hold, that were the things that were really being amplified. And it was that amplification that was requiring a very bright light to be shown upon it in order to look at it, examine it, expose it, and then release it. And it was important because when you're able to bring these things up to the surface and you're able to expose it, it loses its power. It doesn't have power anymore when you're able to do it. And so part of this clearing process that we were going through in 2023 was about releasing the power from that shadow or that dark side, so it no longer had power over us. And it was a hard process to go through some of that because it was very intense. And a lot of the storylines have been carried for so many lifetimes that it was a lot of processing to go through that. In each of us, we all hold both dark and light parts. And if balanced, it brings beautiful harmony to the forefront, right? It's a balancing act that we're always trying to work towards, balancing these elements out. But out of balance, of course, it can create chaos. And a lot of what we see in the third dimensional realms, in the third dimensional world, is an imbalance of these energies. They're not in harmony. And that's mostly because we individually have not looked at ourselves first to do the rebalancing. I was actually just resting yesterday and scrolling through, and I saw that the Barbie movie was on HBO. And I haven't seen it yet, and I wanted to see it. And I really loved it because of the fact that it was very much about this. It was about, there was an imbalance, right? First, it was all Barbie world, and the Kens were not, they didn't feel heard or seen. And then they went to the real world, and Ken saw that the patriarchy, that the men were in charge. And so he came back into Barbie land. And then there was an imbalance there, right? There was an imbalance within that. And it was about restoring the balance back to the world, right? And having this recognition of, oh, I didn't really give you the right recognition. I recognize that now. Oh, right. This was too extreme on this part. And so I think that's what we're all, working with right now, is that in order to bring forward the light and amplify our light into the world, we have to recognize the shadows. We have to go into the dark to recapture those parts of ourselves. And that's what I loved about that movie. It was really talking about this in a fun and entertaining way. I have always said I am not a light worker. I am a shadow worker, because until we shine a light on the shadows, until we bring them to the surface to be examined, we cannot transmute them and fill those parts of ourselves that hold the shadow pieces. We must do the hard work. And oftentimes, this is the scariest work, right? We're so afraid to dive into what is in the dark, what's hidden, to look at those deep shadows that are holding us locked in to this perceived scary place. And it can be a very difficult thing to do. And, I think most people would rather pass by it, ignore it, stuff it down. Because I think looking at it seems either impossible, or in most cases, I think it's too painful to actually do it. And I think there's a lot of people on this planet who refuse to do it because it just seems too overwhelming and too hard and too painful to go there. But for many of you, part of the work that you're doing in this incarnation is specifically that. It was about coming in and tackling those pieces that had been skipped over generation after generation. And I don't want to deal with it. I'm going to put it on the next generation. I don't want to deal with it. I'm going to put it on the next generation. And a lot of the work that we have been doing in this incarnation, this lifetime, is saying, nope, we're not going to pass it down anymore. We're going to take responsibility for it. We're going to face it head on, and we're going to tackle it. And most of the time, what I have found, at least in my experience, is once I have gone in, it's not as scary as I thought it would be. The idea of having to tackle that could be way more scary than the actual work. But once I went in and did the work, it was amazing because it was freeing, and it was bringing those things up to the point where I'm like, that wasn't so bad after all. I can do this, and I can do more of it. Got it. When we try and suppress, though, these shadows or these negative thoughts, we create a lot of havoc on our systems, on our physical bodies, on our emotional bodies. In fact, it takes 30% of our energy for every negative thought we hold. 30% of our energy is wasted on a negative thought. And those negative thoughts have so much power within them that it pulls on people around us, and it pulls on ourselves as well. If I think about just, my child having a temper tantrum, right? The amount of energy it takes, not just for my child to go through that temper tantrum, but the energetic pull it has on me and my husband trying to work through this with him, it's massive. It's a massive energy suck that we do when we stay in a negative place. And that's a lot of energy that just is being wasted. And if you amplify that among everyone on the planet, creating that much negative energy, we're suddenly so out of balance, aren't we? And we can very easily see that all around us as you continue to do the work, as you continue to shift out of that negative space. This is why you want to close yourself off and shut everybody out and not have to interact with people. Because once you get to a place of peace, you don't want to interact with that negative pull anymore, because you don't want to go back into that space. But it's also about how can you be so strong, right, where it doesn't impact you anymore either. That's the key. The key is, can I have such a strong auric field? Can I have such a strong energy field around me to be able to hold these higher frequencies of love and forgiveness and acceptance and all of that, right? Where it counteracts the negative frequencies from going too far off course. And that's, I think, the big work that many of us are doing. The term light worker is not something that's just for fun. You are, again, doing more shadow work because you're shining a light upon those shadows. But at the same time, you're holding that higher frequency. You're holding the higher frequency. So you're helping to pull people out of that state. And that takes an enormous amount of energy and strength to do that. And that is why many of us are so tired at this point, because we have been doing both of these things. We've been working on ourselves and we've been holding the light. We've been holding the higher frequency. We've been moving into the higher frequency. And we have all these solar flares hitting us too, and all these other outside energies moving us into higher states of consciousness. This is a lot of work. And that's why this winter solstice, I think, is so important for us as a collective, because it gives us the time to pause, to stop, to go inward, and just be. And it's these times where we're able to go into the void, go into the cosmic egg, go into the darkness to be still. And the void is so important. A lot of us like to avoid it. We do not want to go into the void. Because the reason it's so important is because it is only through the dark that we can rebirth and create something from nothing. I was in a women's group over the weekend, and there was a really great speaker who had come in. Her name is Lisa Lister, and she is a real women empowerment leader in this field. And she talks about self-sorcery. And she was talking a lot about the void. And it was so interesting because I was, putting my notes together for this podcast episode. And then she was talking about the void. And I've actually been hearing quite a few people talk about the void recently. And what I loved what she said about this was, she said the void is the place of no thing, nothing, right? No thing, nothing, where anything is possible. It's the place of nothing where anything is possible. It is inside the womb where you hold the universe. It is the creative force where everything, all the knowledge and all the wisdom that you hold resides. And it is from this point where you can create anything and you can birth it into the world, into existence. And this is where our sacral chakra resides. This is our creative powerhouse. It's literally the womb. And it's from here that we birth ideas, we express ourselves creatively, we bring that ferocious, just nonstop, fiery energy into the world. But in order to do that, we first must go within. We must go into the void. And we have to do the integration work first, go through the emotional release, go through and examine the traumas, go through and shine a light on what needs to be released before we can rebirth and bring a new perspective, a new idea, a new creative endeavor forward. And this can be, again, a very uncomfortable space for most of us, especially the world that we are, have been living in, where productivity and constantly doing is being rewarded and being still and slow is not. I remember for years, I worked, constantly going. And every time I hit Christmas, I would get so sick, and I would be sick my entire Christmas time. And it was because it was the time where there was kind of a forced slowdown, right? A lot of things are closed down during this period. We didn't have as much activity going on, and I would have to finally stop working at the pace I was working, and my body would just absolutely collapse. It would get sick. And that's because I was so wound up for all these years, right? This time to have to go in and be still is extremely important. And it shouldn't be a forced thing that you do. It should be part of the natural flow of this time of year and leaning into those energies. What we are essentially doing and what we're working towards is we are pulling in all of this ancient knowledge, all these ancient practices, and really our true normalcy. Because we are not in a normal world right now, and we are in an abnormal world. We think it's normal, but it's not. But we're bringing back the normalcy to us. And that stillness point, that 0 point, is where we have to go in order to find new ways to approach what we can bring into the world. And as we start to move deeper into the Capricorn Mansion, so we start on 12/21 and we go through to mid-January, this is the time where we are setting our long-term goals. We are looking at what we want to build. What kind of legacy is it that we want to leave for ourselves and the world? Capricorn is the builder. And this year especially, we're being asked to look at things in a different way. Not in the way that we've always looked at things. We are being asked to look at things in a completely different way and manifesting in a different way. That's what that 12/12 portal was all about. It's not the 50,000 foot view. It was all about this 50 million light year view. That is what we're really being asked to do. Is, can we go into the void, the quiet space, free of distractions? Can we take that internal pause and hear ourselves and get very clear about what it is that we need and what we desire to bring forward? And as you are wrapping up 2023 and you're reflecting upon this year and what a year it has been, I would challenge you to really sit with yourself and do the necessary reflection so you can move into that void and sit with and be in the nothingness for a while. And here are some questions that I would pose to you as you spend some time within. First of all, I would ask yourself, what did I do really well in 2023? What were my greatest personal challenges? And what were my achievements that helped me grow as a human being? And please take that time to celebrate you. Pat yourself on the back as you reflect on all the things you went through in 2023 and how that has helped you to grow. Remember, 2023 was the 7 year. This was all about spirituality. It was all about the higher perspective, our higher self. And we did so much clearing out this year. So many relationships and karmic contracts with others, all that stuff got cleared out this year. It was a big year, a huge year for the collective. So celebrate that. Celebrate what you did. The next question I would pose at you is, what did I learn about myself? Where did I go deep to better understand myself and how I think, how I operate, and what did I recognize from that? What are kind of the key takeaways that you had from that, from looking at that? The next question I would pose at you is, what are my greatest desires for 2024? And is there anything that's standing in my way from achieving those goals? And if so, identify what those are and how you could possibly remove those obstacles from your path. I always lean back on the freedom transmissions, that channeling that Carissa Schumacher did with Yeshua. And I was rereading that the other day, and one of the key things that came up was looking at where you feel like you don't have stability in your life. And the question that was asked was, what feels overwhelming or unsustainable that needs to be released? And this could include where we need to release any attachments or expectations that we have set ourselves or that others have on us, that we need to achieve some certain outcome. So what is it that we might need to release from in order to have that freedom to release those obstacles that are in our path? And I think finally, the big question is, how can I be of service? And not with the feeling that I have to give more than I can or give more than I get back. It's not about service in the form of depletion and exhaustion. We're done with that storyline. That was the storyline that we are releasing this year. It's more about how can I be in service in the form of being your most authentic self? How can you show up completely as you in whatever form that is, that makes you shine your light from within, that you're being you and you're standing in your truth, you're standing in your power? How can you be of service by just being you, by shining your light into the world? That's the big one. 2024 is an 8-year. This is the year of expansion. This is the year of about embodying yourself, of creating things that bring you happiness, that bring you wealth. And I'm not talking financial wealth, but just wealth in general. It's also about infinite possibilities. It's about infinity. It's the infinite possibilities. I like to think about it like a snowflake, because every single snowflake has its own unique design and imprint. So what is that unique imprint that you want to bring forward in this 8-year? 8 is this power number. It is a power year. And the astrology for 2024 is going to move very fast and very furious. And we are going to see massive changes. massive changes on this planet like we have not experienced before. Aquarius and Uranus are playing major roles in 2024, which means a lot of disruption, a lot of unexpected twists and turns. Aquarius is known for wanting to break down the old structures, of wanting to bring in things that work for the whole. And though that's the energy, it's air energy. It moves so fast and quick and kind of spins you around. And that is why getting still right now, that is why going within right now, resting is so very important, because once we hit January 1, I'm telling you, it is full speed ahead after that. So how can you get so focused on you? How can you get so strong that you know who you are and you know how you can be most aligned with your highest self and purpose? And so how can you do that to then be of service to others by being you? You know, we don't have too many opportunities to just pause, especially in the world 24/7, right? Constantly going, constantly on our phones, constantly communicating, just to truly pause and shut out all the outside distractions and just be with ourselves. So take advantage of this time, turn off the computer, turn off social media, go within, find that time by yourself, and just be with yourself. And whatever it is that you are focusing on, enjoy it. Enjoy this time to go and be in the void. Thank you for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed it, please rate, review, leave a message, or share with others who may find it helpful. You can engage with me on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at The Stina Life. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you next time.